podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hey Paul, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I've watched all the football this week, but apart from that, I've had a lovely week, thank you.
Very good, yeah. I'm running out of words. Anyone who reads Rant knows that I like to throw in a random long word just for the sake of it. I had to reach into the thesaurus this weekend to try and work out how to describe boredom, soporific, dull, anemic, and other words of that nature.
Yeah, it's not just been boring, it's also been bad.
Yeah.
Which I think is a little bit different to the kind of boring it was.
Yeah, actually, watching the game this weekend actually made me angry. And I don't often get angry watching football these days. And not angry because United were doing something really dumb or were terrible in defence or anything like that. But the anger at the utter pointlessness of most of United's play. 478 passes United completed, of which only 160-something were in the final third, and compare that to Leicester completing 169 of something like 200, right? So most of United's play is condensed into what Van Gaal calls the 60, I think, the middle third of the pitch, and really doing very little, sideways, and very, very slow.
Yeah, so let's start with PSV, shall we? Rooney back in the side, and United's attack collapsed around him. It's really unfair. The first half, we were all right, actually, in that game. Made some pretty good chances. Martial had a couple of chances, which he didn't take at the near post. Lingard had a chance or two. We had 2 shots on target in the first 15 minutes of that game, which might be the quickest we've got to 2 shots on target all season. We looked like we could make something happen. But then the second half of that game, this is my take on it. So discount the Middlesbrough game because it was just the Carling Cup and played Sergio Romero in goal, so clearly didn't care about that one. So apart from that, I reckon the first half against Liverpool, that game against Crystal Palace and the first half against Arsenal, those are the only ones which have been worse than the PSV game, and the PSV might be the worst of all of them.
Yeah, and United's principal creative fulcrum, Rooney, he was in Guardado's pocket I actually couldn't work out whether it was that Guardado was brilliant or Rooney was bad or some combination of the both, but he was totally anonymous. And then United had 2 other holding midfielders and just were totally ineffective. And Van Gaal talked afterwards about Lingard being the only player who was running behind. Well, maybe true, and actually I think I tweeted at the time that I thought Martial was a little bit naive. He wasn't really playing in the fashion that United needed in the second half, but it was only in the circumstances. He was always looking to spin, and United just needed someone to hold it up because it was just so slow getting from back to front. And it just didn't trouble PSV at all, really.
And you could sort of put some of this down to analysing the game in hindsight, but to be honest, you kind of thought about this as soon as the team sheet was read out. So first of all, you got Rooney and Martial both coming back into the side, even though Rooney was poorly and Martial had a knock. And they're immediately messing up an attack which was finally effective against Watford. You've got Memphis being shunted back over to wide left, where he did so much damage for PSV last season in an authentic 4-3-3, but has been pretty much universally ineffective for United there this season. So that was a bit of a worry straight off. The fact that he left out Mata is basically criminal, I think, and especially when he brought on Fellaini instead of Mata, but didn't use Fellaini as a kind of battering ram and to try and get on the end of set pieces, but actually just played him in centre midfield.
Right.
And it was just a criminal substitution, that was.
It really was. There was an absolutely criminal moment about 5 minutes after Fellaini came on in which he gets the ball in midfield turns backwards and plays it back to Smalling. And the crowd at that point started getting pretty antsy. He played as a defensive midfielder for most of the time he was on, until perhaps the last 5 minutes of the game when he pushed further forward.
And not just push further forward, like not to kind of play behind the striker, but he just became the striker at that point. And United give out these data packs at the end of the game, and one of the things that's on it is the kind of average position of the players. And you can see in the first half that there's so much balance. The squad, there's both flanks, there's players everywhere you'd expect them to be. And just by the end of the second half, it's just a massive splodge of a mess. Yeah. It's incredibly narrow. There's no width whatsoever. And you've got Fellaini as the most advanced player on the pitch. And then to bring Mata on with 5 minutes left, the whole thing was properly pointless, that whole endeavour.
Yeah, interesting you mentioned data. I mean, and two widely shared pictures on social media this week. One of United's average position over the entire season. I mean, the last 2 games, PSV and Leicester, very, very narrow, but not necessarily that way for the entire season. But you can very easily point out United's positions on the pitch. Just such a very rigid formation. And then the second one being the pass map from the game against Leicester, but it was very similar against PSV, where the ball is about 90% of the ball going sideways in the middle third of the pitch. And it's just infuriating. It's infuriating. And, I was totting it up. It's 531 days since Van Gaal got the job. It's about 549 until he's out of a job, and perhaps actually 20 less than that until the end of the 2016-17 season, right? So he's halfway through his tenure. Does it really take this long to impose an attacking style on United? I just don't think it does. I think this is what he wants. And he talked after the Leicester game, not the PSV game, which we're of course talking about just needing that one chance. He blamed Memphis for what was actually poor control and a bad shot over the bar, for missing the one chance. I was like, hang on, this doesn't make sense. I mean, even Jamie Carragher called it out as saying that this is not United. Historically, United have not sought one chance in a game with which to win it.
No, and there's a lot of data suggests the reason Ferguson's side was so successful was just that they had more shots than everyone they played against. On average over the course of his tenure.
It's a really strong correlation between the number of shots and the number of goals. I mean, really strong.
You don't have to be a statistician to work that one out, do you? That makes a lot of sense.
No, actually, the number of shots United have had this season is in the 140s in these 14 games. The last season that Ferguson was in charge, it was over 230 in the same number of games.
Yeah.
And so, it's crude stat, of course, and it's hard to compare season to season, but that'll tell you something.
Yeah, and so just trying to wrangle this back to just the PSV game, so just to try and keep some structure, because there's this...
Structure being the appropriate word there.
There's so much to say about both of these games. So I think he got his team selection wrong. He definitely got his subs wrong. But I want to say something about Old Trafford. You said the crowd got a bit antsy. There were a few light boos at the end of the game, but it was mostly just a kind of collective groan. The crowd had given up during that game. There was no life whatsoever, and this was a Champions League game. This is rare, Old Trafford is never going to be like a cauldron of noise from start to finish, except for the really, really big games. But there was barely they could barely muster up anger, and you compare it to the CSKA game where the crowd were really invested and invigorated, and there were all those attack chants, and they were kind of counterbalanced by massive pro-United songs and all, as you would expect. But there was just nothing against PSV. The crowd are very clearly absolutely sick of what's being served up,
and rightly so.
Yeah,
and rightly so. It's just really bad. I mean, I think you said you'd had a conversation with a journalist at Old Trafford not long ago when he said it was a strange formation, a strange style to bring to England. It's particularly strange style to bring to Manchester United. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense in the history of the club. And Van Gaal is a student of the game. In what textbook does he read that Manchester United, the babes, the fledglings, Ferguson, 25 years of, pretty much attacking football, not all of it, not every season, but pretty much. should be translated into this, a team that is almost scared to play the ball. And Van Gaal doesn't seem to make the link. He doesn't seem to make the link between what he's asking them to do and the way they're playing. You know, Gary Neville said this week that he's quite sure Van Gaal isn't teaching them on the training ground to pass the ball backwards. But there's something he's doing that's encouraging that.
So after the PSV game, I was in the mix zone, and the only United players that stopped, Ashley Young stopped to talk to MUTV. Normally, lots of United players will stop to talk to MUTV, but only Ashley Young did. Daley Blind spoke to Dutch television, and that was pretty much it. Everyone else just kind of walked past, and they all looked absolutely furious, and it took them ages to come out. So putting two and two together, I assume that Van Gaal absolutely hammered them in the dressing room afterwards. And then the next morning, the story came out that a Telegraph journalist said that an anonymous United player had said he's half the player he could be under Van Gaal. And the other story that came out was that Van Gaal had gone ballistic at them in the dressing room, but at half time. And if you think about how much worse United were in the second half than the first half, it shows you that screaming the odds is not necessarily an effective motivational technique, because the team looked totally devoid of confidence in that second half. And I did wonder what had happened to them, because in the first half they did look quite bright and lively.
Yeah, what's the Dutch for throwing teacups? I'm not sure that Van Gaal will even get his point across. I mean, his press conference after the PSV game at Old Trafford was a little awkward, you know. I wasn't sure that he was very clear about what he was trying to say. It was even worse after Leicester.
Yeah, I'll come on to that if we can.
Yeah, it was just, I mean, you know, we'll come on to some detail because you were there, but just very, very confusing about what he is trying to say about his team and the excuses. And it feels like excuses now for why his team isn't creating any chances.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else you want to say specifically about the PSV game?
No, it was bad. And look, what's the impact? The impact is that United now have to go to Wolfsburg and win to guarantee progression in this group.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that's no easy feat. And you'd have to say, on the balance of the way United playing, probably not very likely either, right? So then we're looking for CSKA to do something at PSV, which doesn't look likely either. They're a bad side.
Yeah, and they're out. And they're totally out. I don't think they can even get Europa League place, right?
No, right.
So they've got nothing to play for other than pride. It's at PSV. PSV beat them in Moscow, something United weren't able to do. So let me give a prediction about that one. United will go to Wolfsburg. It'll be 1-1, and someone will miss a reasonably good chance, and Van Gaal will moan about the one chance that was needed, and will be in the Europa League playing, some third-ranked team from the Finnish top league. And then Van Gaal will be complaining about the travel. Anyway, and the schedule, playing on Thursday nights. But anyway, the Leicester game then, it was interesting. The King Power Stadium is weird. Like, it's very noisy, but they all had these like folded up noisemakers. So they weren't actually clapping. They were just clapping these noisemakers. And it's a very unpleasant sound and a very sort of corporate-y sound. There was a lot of chants.
What do you expect in the King Power Stadium?
Yeah, exactly. There was a lot of chanting.
Your noisemakers brought to you by
Asia Air. There was a lot of chanting, which was backed up by this rhythmic clapping noise. But like only a small percentage of the crowd were actually singing, but all of them were doing the clapping. Anyway, Jamie Vardy scored his goal, breaking Van Nistelrooy's record, which is a pretty impressive achievement. He looked okay, although I think actually United did a pretty good job of keeping him quiet, apart from the individual errors that led to that goal.
Yeah, well, it was a good weekend for offensive bigots, wasn't it? If you take in Tyson Fury's win in the boxing.
Yeah, I've not really followed that one, but yeah, that's my understanding of that situation too. Unfortunate.
It was. And unfortunate also United's defending. So, which I think you were going to get onto there, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, United defended really well for almost all of that game, right? That's.
Yeah, I mean, basically had a left back playing at right back who slid a ball through two players, and McNair got on the wrong side of the ball and player, and Vardy slipped it past De Gea.
McNair wasn't there, was he? I thought it was Darmian and Young on either side.
Maybe Darmian, rather than McNair.
Yeah.
I mean, either way, the United defender got on the wrong side, and really shouldn't have been turned by that ball, which travelled 40 yards across the grass. And Vardy slipped it in. I mean, I think it was a fine finish. I've heard some criticism of De Gea, but I'm not sure I'd buy that one. I mean, he's got it right in the corner and he struck it quite early.
Yeah, it came from a Kasper Schmeichel throw out, which is a really kind of unconventional throw. And as I saw it, I had a little moment of like, oh, just like his dad.
Yeah,
and then
that's right.
That sort of end, that pleasant reminiscence ended moments later. The place went ballistic, as you would expect, and actually United really struggled for the rest of the first half after that. The only one that was really, really trying to get them going was Schweinsteiger, who was, as always, looking around, geeing players up, talking to players. It's quite pointed towards Chris Smalling, and Smalling give him some back, and then a few moments later we scored a goal direct from an assist direct from a corner, which I think we spoke about on the podcast last week.
But yeah, well, we did, and Van Gaal gave himself credit for that one by putting Blint on corners. But I mean, a point about that first half, I was counting. It was the 38th minute until United played a real penetrative ball forward. All of it was really passive until then. And, I'm not saying hoof it or bang it forward long, but the ratio of total United passes to passes in the final third should tell you something. A lot of this is just useless passing, useless. And Daley Blint played a reasonably long ball forward to Marshall in the channel, who turned and got a corner from United. And that was the first time in almost the entire first half that United had actually taken a risk with passing.
It's not that it took a while to work out what the system was. 3-4-1-2 is.
It was a telephone number,
yeah. So 3 at the back and then 4 across the middle with the 2 wing backs and Carrick and Schweinsteiger. As soon as the team sheet comes out, you're like heart in mouth. I mean, actually, a 1-1 draw is kind of a better result than I was expecting once I saw the two teams, in all honesty. I think it might have been even what I predicted on the podcast last week, but in the end, it's not a bad result for United. And the kind of counter-argument to the people absolutely flipping out about Van Gaal on social media is people saying we're 1 point off the top of the league. We've just drawn with the team who have been in excellent form and have been absolutely free scoring. Sure,
but it's Leicester. It's Leicester, and United had 70% possession, But actually, Leicester were quite happy for United to have that because, as we've said time and time again, including pre-season, it's really easy to defend against United when they're playing like this. Just narrow, just go deep and narrow, and United are going to create so few chances, in fact, 2 on target. And for Leicester's 30% possession, they had more shots on target. And in fact, felt like they were the more likely team to score sometimes. I mean, in Mahrez, Vardy and Okazaki, they had 3 players who were very effective in breaking, from open and broken possession. Very, very effective. Much more effective than United. Not that United broke very much, There was a point where Gary Neville said, United used to do that. I thought, right. That's about right.
I thought it sort of worked a bit better with Mata at 10 than it has sometimes. He wasn't spectacular, but I think he grew into the game, actually. And I thought
I thought Rooney got into his zone. I thought he grew into the game.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
There's
some fuss today on social media. Somebody tweeted a quote from Van Gaal saying he only took Rooney off because he had a knock. What Van Gaal actually said was, I was deciding who to take off, and then Rooney had a knock, so it was an easy decision. But I could have also taken Martial off, which...
Yeah, but who do you think he would have taken off if they were both fit?
This is exactly right, that it felt like it was coming. But then, once Rooney went off, we looked brighter and lively. Memphis, a beautiful touch, really spectacular touch to make himself half a yard of space and put a decent cross in. I think one of the big problems, both against PSV and Leicester, was that you know, Ed, that I like Ashley Young more than you do, right? But a lot of the time, he was the player that was found in space, and then, you know, he's a percentages player. He needs a lot of chances. He needs a lot of opportunities in space to do something really good with the ball. He's not the one that's going to pick out the killer ball every time he's got an opening.
No, you know, his stock move is to cut inside and float a ball to the back post, which is pretty much what he did.
Yeah.
So I thought United were pretty ineffective going forward. I mean, a few chances, but look, you've got 2 games this week. One in which Martial is needed to play with his back to goal and hold the ball up to bring United's players into the game because we were so slow breaking. And then a second where he's got support a bit further up the pitch, and in which, you know, he wasn't able to really play the focal point. And, you know, and I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying the way the system is set up in an attacking way is a fucking mess. I mean, it's amateur coach here, so clearly I know nothing about this and have no right to anything other than an opinion. But Martial's like going into the channels and Rooney's dropping deep into Mata's zone over and over again against Leicester. It didn't make any sense as an attacking unit. And then, you know, not least because everything behind them was slow all of the time, with effectively 7 defenders on the pitch, you know, and it's if you include Carrick and Schweinsteiger, who are there just to defend. It just didn't.
And that's not true. That isn't true that Schweinsteiger's there just to defend.
Increasingly, that's the mindset. You know, he's not there as a playmaker. Look at his pass map. It's not going forward very much. And some of that's to do with what's happening further forwards. But, you know, the point being that it is just not good. Jamie Carragher call it overcoached or over-organised in forward positions, you know, not enough room for free thinking and creativity and off-the-cuff moments, you know, and it's really true. It's really true.
Yeah, and indeed, in his press conference after the game, Van Gaal singled McNair out for criticism for a moment of improvising. Exactly what you're talking about, an off-the-cuff moment where when you're playing 3 at the back, it's perfectly reasonable for one of your centre forwards to break forward when your team really needs a goal, right? Paddy McNair is good on the ball. He's come through the United Academy, so he's got some technique. But Van Gaal said, a lower chance happened because Paddy McNair thought he was a striker when he's a defender. And I was sat in the front row of the press conference and I was like slightly shaking when he said that. I did shake my head because I could not believe he'd said it. It was a real sickener because Paddy McNair's 21. Right, or is he 22 now? Whatever, he's just breaking through. His confidence is not going to be the best. It's not like he's made a position his own. And for his manager to blame him when he's actually put in a really decent shift, and when his manager's totally ignoring the crimes of his more senior players, I thought I was bang out of order.
Well, yeah, and I mean, the point is the pressure is building on Van Gaal. He's had 18 months in the job. And he's not been able to fashion a side that's effective in all areas of the pitch. I mean, how many times has it happened that United have been great in defence and great in attack? Not many. And, you know, I don't want to be crass here, but for all the money spent, and there has been a lot despite all the outgoings too, you wonder whether the sum is not, you know, all of the parts at the moment. It's just he's not fashioned a team that is as good as I hope we could expect. And that says nothing about the table, right? A point behind the leaders, third in the table. United could well win the Premier League this season, you know? Could well. Not favourites, but could well win the Premier League this season. Is it good? No.
And the thing is, like, even if you discount the money spent, which I think... I really think the money, I've said this time and again, but I really think the money spent is a red herring, increasingly a red herring, because of the level of squad renewal that was required. But the time spent is now approaching a level where, you know, this is the thing about Van Gaal. Everyone's like, you know, this is the Van Gaal narrative. It takes time for his teams to click. Took till December in his Bayern Munich job when they won 4-1 against Juventus, and then at the end of that season, Uli Hoeneß, the Bayern president, said some of the football we have played this season has been absolute perfection because they clicked at some point. The click is not happening, and it's now been 18 months. I mean, you could make an incredibly generous argument to Van Gaal to say that there was an extent to which the slate was wiped clean at the end of the summer because there was so much transition in terms of playing staff this summer, but I don't think that's a reasonable argument. I also think it's not like he doesn't deserve some credit for some things. We are incredibly hard to beat. We are a point off the top of the table. When he leaves, the squad's going to be in an awful lot better shape than it was. But the problem is it's now you got an entire generation of United fans tapping their watch going, roll on 18 months time when we can get a new manager in. And
or maybe even less than that if you believe some of the reports this week that Pep Guardiola is looking at the United job with envious eyes.
Well, I mean, if that's true, like basically 50% of our Rantcast questions this week are about that. You put out a poll which I think asked whether people would, if there was anyone who would want to keep Van Gaal if Pep was available.
That's what it was trying to say. There were about 4 negatives in there, so it might have confused people, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the percentages you got out of that poll were heavily influenced by the wording of the question.
Yeah. You wouldn't not knock it, though, would you?
There's surely, unless you really hate Pep Guardiola...
And there are people who do hate him because they think his style of football is similarly soporific.
It's not, though, is it?
It's not. No. Peak Pep at Barcelona was a fantastic side. Yeah, they kept the ball, but it wasn't one pace and they scored a lot of goals. And right now, if you look at his Bayern Munich side, they are not boring.
Nope. So, I mean, that would be a dream scenario at this point.
Right. And just to cover off one thing, because, I made this point on Twitter a few times, and people say, yeah, but look at the talent. Yeah, sure, United's talent perhaps isn't as good as Barcelona at its best, or definitely isn't, and nor Bayern Munich now. But that's got nothing to do with the style of football. I mean, it just doesn't. I hate to say it and, whisper it really quietly, but a few miles down the road at Liverpool, Klopp has not taken very long to impose his style on that team, and they're doing very well.
Yeah, and talk about teams that could win the league this season.
They're only 5 points behind United. Yeah. Still to play United, and the momentum is with them, sadly. Yeah. Klopp does look like a park drunk, though. He's been sleeping rough in Stanley Park, no doubt about it.
Ryan Dino7 says, can you explain this new technique Blint used at corners where he aimed for United players rather than opposition players?
Yeah, I'm not having this.
It's unacceptable. I thought that was I was like in the middle of composing a tweet about right at the end of the first half to say, like, I've looked far and wide for some positives, and the only one I can find is that we look better from corners with Blint taking them. And then he fired in a corner and Schweinsteiger scored before I could hit tweet. It was bad. It was bad timing.
Oh, of course. But look, I've just got to have a but here. That's a ball floated into the sort of, between the 6-yard box and the penalty area. And Okazaki was the man defending, and he was just completely caught out of position. A forward, and a small forward at that. I mean, it was really bad defending from Leicester, really bad.
Yeah, but most of Blint's corners were dangerous, and that you just can't say that about anyone that's been taking corners at United since Ronaldo left. Oh, Van Persie.
No, very true, right? And he's putting it into the box with some pace and whip on it, and it's all of a sudden a lot more dangerous than the let's rotate the corner back through midfield for 50 passes before we get anything in.
So it was terrible against Leicester in all the ways we know that it was terrible. It was great that Schweinsteiger scored. That's 2 games in a row. I mean, he didn't score against Watford technically, but that was a last minute winner, and then this one was right at the death of the first half, so vital timing, and he does add a lot to United. I think Schweinsteiger, we've talked about the leadership side of it, but a couple of really vital interventions in the game in the last couple of league games. That's a kind of positive, and reasonably defensively solid again, but it's not good enough, and it is not fun to watch. This is the thing. I mean, the Leicester game was a lot more fun to watch than the PSV game, for sure, because at no point did United look like a park team, which they did in the second half of the PSV game. That was really dismal. But yeah, not nearly good enough. After the game, the press conference, after the Palace game, was at the press conference, Van Gaal was brilliant. Like, he was really statesmanlike, he was really calm, he was really exhibited a lot of leadership, but this press conference, there was one question where I have absolutely no idea what he was saying in his answer. And I rate myself pretty highly as a person who speaks Van Gaal. You know, I normally know what he means when he says things that some people might not follow. But this one, just not a clue what he was talking about.
Yeah. I mean, you know, maybe he's in his own head a bit too much. And look, if we don't have a clue what he's talking about, do the players?
This is a very big question. One of the journalists said to him, you seem a bit angry, Louis, because he did. And he said, I'm angry that my words are being misconstrued. I was thinking you might want to pick your words more carefully then in that case. And also, that was disingenuous. That's not what he was angry about. He was angry from when he sat down. He was clearly angry with the performance. You know,
He also doesn't like being questioned. Right, so the repeated questions about Rooney or United's attacking performance, he's clearly annoyed by it. Clearly.
Yeah, but as I say, he was annoyed before he was asked any questions. Maybe he was just assuming that the questions would be of that nature. But I think he was also annoyed about the performance because this is not the style of football that he wants United to play ultimately. He doesn't want United to be this ineffective in front of goal. But he does, the paradox of this is he does keep banging on about this, oh, well, we should have taken our chance.
I know, and that's the frustrating thing, because this is not United. I mean, Gary Neville says that United are 2 players away from winning the league, and that might be true. I mean, you know, you got a spread of sort of 4 points between the top 6. That might be true, but it's 2 very good attacking players away from winning the league.
Yeah, I mean, if we sign Ronaldo
Neymar
and Messi, we're fine.
Bale, yeah, sure. You know, no problem. For now, though, I mean, you know, even if United grind their way to enough points to challenge, and I guess they will this season, there's going to be many fans who are not happy. Many fans that will look at Guardiola if he moves this summer, if he goes to City, as other reports are saying, and think, you know, something's not right here. And we'll see if Mourinho survives at Chelsea, but you could have a situation where you've got Guardiola, Klopp, and say Ancelotti at 3 of United's major rivals. You know, all coaches who do quite like attacking football. And we might be looking at all 3 of them with some jealousy.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll have Ryan Giggs in charge. So, you know.
Well, and look, who knows? You know, I haven't a clue whether he is sort of in the background saying, look, this isn't right. Whether he does a lot on the training pitch and is trying to change United from within, whether he's just holding on for the right time to stick the knife in, or what, you know, do we know if he's going to make a good coach? No idea. He prepares the briefing reports for Van Gaal and Van Gaal likes his PowerPoints, but and he's got plenty of respect, of course, amongst the players and his peers and all of that. But a track record as coach, none. So it might be great, might not.
Okay, let's do a bunch of Twitter questions, shall we? Because I think we've kicked United enough for the last half an hour, and it's now time for you, the listeners, to kick United for a bit. There's not many cheery ones in here, Ed. Okay. At A. Hardiman says, stick with LVG or twist with Ancelotti in January.
Yeah, well, look, clearly that's not going to happen. So it's kind of one of those hypotheticals. No, you stick with LVG to the end of the season, and then a call has to be made on the basis of United's performance this season, final position, what it looks like the players are doing, if they are still playing for him, and what else is available.
Yeah. At KMC_MUFC_4VR says, in apportioning responsibility, what's the right split between bad tactics and bad attacking player form?
It's a bit of both. I think it's a kind of restraint that's put on the team where they are getting very few players ahead of the ball. And so it's looking a bit static up front and some poor form. Memphis in bad form, Martial struggling a little bit to impose himself on the side. Wayne Rooney's just been abysmal. Wayne Mata often marginalised. Ashley Young generally just ineffective.
But I think if you look at the whole of Van Gaal's time at United, has there been an attacking player in form for longer than a month?
No, good point.
So I think this is in many ways the most damning indictment of him. The fact that none of our attackers have ever been in form under him for any length of time.
Whereas the defenders are doing very well. Yeah, just ask Rivaldo or Hristo Stoichkov what they think.
At CD5442 says, can we call him Busty Goal yet?
Not quite.
Couple more. He just needs to score, 10 10 games in a row now to break the record.
Yeah, well, look, people keep going on about this record, but it's it's an English top division record, so it's not just Premier League. But he has played in quite a few other competitions, for England, including against San Marino and the Carling Cup. So until he does it in 10 actual games in a row, I'm not counting it.
So you're not counting Rude's either?
No, but Rude was, it was high quality stuff, wasn't it? Obviously.
A friend of the Rantcast at Tatiana MUFC says, this side is filled with players LVG wanted. Why do you think we have such issues with the squad fitting his vision?
Does anyone know what his vision is? Because I don't. I mean, maybe you do. Maybe you have a clearer idea, but I don't know what it is. 18 months in, I'm not sure what the final product will be.
I mean, my working assumption is that it's like it is now, but better in the final third. More incisive, quicker, more change of pace, more pulling people out of position, and a better end product.
But we hardly ever see that. I mean, we saw a little bit at Watford where the front three were sort of exchanging positions now and then. Yeah, but hardly ever.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. But
that looks like a mistake, not the actual pattern.
But I'm not saying it's the pattern. I'm saying this can't be what he wants. He can't want it to be rubbish.
Well, maybe he does, as long as you... I mean, the way he talked after the Leicester game was not, we were really poor, we didn't create any chances, but we didn't take the one chance we created.
I don't think he was happy with the way United played in that game. It didn't look to me like he was at all happy with the way that United played in that game, frankly.
So to conclude that section, I guess, a friend of the Rantcast, Simon Stevens, said, would it be better for United if he went? He being Van Gaal. I'm not answering that one, Paul. You're always with the hashtag manager out.
I think his record is good enough to earn him a ridiculous line of credit. Because, even up to now, he's already burnt a lot of that credit. And also, I think the fact that we're a point away from the top of the league, it seems like... This seems like it would be a very weird time to fire a manager, right?
It would be an insane time to fire a manager 1 point off the top of the league.
Yeah, exactly. So... But the problem is, the real problem with all of this is that the experience of going to football matches or watching them on TV is something that people participate in for pleasure. It's the notion that, fans stick with clubs through thick and thin has been pretty demonstrably proven not to be the case over many years. And even really proper hardcore home and away Reds are bored out of their minds by the football. So it's so boring to watch that for people's enjoyment's sake, maybe it would be better if he went. But in terms of how you run a football club, it seems like it would be crazy. What do you think, Ed?
I said I wasn't answering that one.
No, but you've got to. Do you think United would be better off getting rid of Van Gaal now?
Not now. No, I think that's ridiculous in a way. A point off the top could well win the Premier League this season. I mean, really could. So getting rid of the manager now doesn't make any sense. I can understand completely why United fans are frustrated, but the best thing to do is to leave it until the summer, see where United finish, because it could be anywhere between first and about sixth. And see what shape the side is in, see if Van Gaal has a clear plan for moving United forward, and see who is available, and then make a decision. It seems the noises are that the United board would have no problem in paying off Van Gaal's final year as manager if there was someone better or peppier coming along.
I mean, that's a different decision then, isn't it? Because that isn't about... It's not even really about... Van Gaal, then it's just about the Pep's future, because if he doesn't come to us, he's going to go to someone that we play against regularly, and that would be bad, right? So
yeah. Also, so in the scenario painted a bit earlier, what if you do have Guardiola, Klopp, Ancelotti and Mourinho at PSG or something like that, all tied up?
Yeah, it's that would be tricky times. Good times for Ryan Giggs. So we play West Ham at the weekend. It's at Old Trafford. West Ham have been, early in the season they got a lot of big scouts away from home. I think they've gone off the boil slightly since then, haven't they? And Payet got injured, which was a very big deal to them. They played today and I have not seen their result yet, so I should look that up, really.
They drew at home to West Brom. on.
There you go. That tells you something, doesn't it, about them having gone off the boil?
They have. I mean, they are still only 5 points off fourth, but they were for a while chasing the Champions League. So certainly gone off the boil, West Ham. You know, there are some key players who have not been in form or fit for West Ham, so none more so than Andy Carroll, the big striker, I think, who's scored once this season. Once was a £35 million player, apparently. Sacco has just been injured. He's a key player as well. So, you know, tough times for West Ham. They don't traditionally do very well at Old Trafford either.
No, although tradition and Old Trafford have parted company recently.
Yeah, true. And I suppose they beat Chelsea a few weeks ago, though everyone was beating Chelsea at that point, so maybe we can't give them too much credit. Got spanked at Tottenham last weekend, really, really hammered. So yeah, not in the best form, but you know, we know exactly what they're going to do, right? I mean, it's not difficult, this one. If you're Bilic, what you do is you set them up quite narrow and quite deep and try and play on the break.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and maybe they won't be able to do that, and maybe we'll spawn a couple of goals and get the win, but you know, the chances of it being gorgeous free-flowing football seem a long shot. I mean, we haven't talked about Rooney hardly at all this week, and I really don't want to, except to say he'll be back in the side unless he's injured. And I really hate to wish an injury on a human being.
But
well, no, I mean, I can't even do it because it's like the football isn't as important as people's well-being. But it's just,
you don't have to wish an injury on him. You just have to wish that he doesn't recover quite as quickly as he might.
Yeah, because we need him not to play for us to have any chance of being fluid. Because we've been fluid precisely once this season with him in the side, and that was in spite of him, not because of him, at Everton.
Well, true. Although, if he's not fit, it's almost certainly going to be Marouane Fellaini at number 10.
It won't be.
I'll just leave that silence there for us to contemplate the horror of that choice. I mean, talk about Hobson's choice, Rooney or Fellaini at 10.
I'll have Rooney, please.
I'll just have neither, thanks.
Yeah, just play with 10.
Play with 10, yeah, very good. So look, I mean, I think United are going to win this game. Obviously, absolutely going to hammer them. 1-0.
Just once again, 55 minutes of Rantcast. God, United are so boring and rubbish and can't score any goals. I think we'll win this weekend.
Yeah. It's the very essence of fandom, isn't it? That was awful. It was terrible, that was. We're going to win. Come on, you Reds.
Yeah, I think... I really thought we'd beat PSV. Not beating PSV has knocked my confidence in United's ability to win games. Leicester... That not so much, because I think that was a tricky tie. But the fact that we couldn't do anything at home against PSV is a real worry. No, we're not going to win. 0-0 draw again. Yeah, make it whatever it is, 5 0-0 draws in the last 8 fixtures or whatever it'll be at that point.
Yeah, there's been a lot this season, a lot of scoreless games from United. I mean, it's not good. Yeah, it's interesting set of fixtures though. We talked about Liverpool earlier. They play Newcastle next weekend, right? So if United don't win against West Ham, Liverpool could be within 3 points or maybe even 2 of United. City go to Stoke. You'd fancy a City win. They seem to be creeping back into some form. I mean, they're so dependent on the fitness of Company, Aguero and Silva. Aguero injured again. That injuries really do impact United. Actually, I think we talked about the positives of Van Gaal's regime. We've got a lot of injuries at the moment, but because it's so much system based, I don't think injuries actually impact United as much as they do City, who really do rely on their important players. And then who do Arsenal play? I can't remember. Sunderland. They play Sunderland next weekend, so you'd expect them to get some more points. So United could not be in a great position if they don't beat West Ham next weekend.
But equally...
or season.
Sunderland could definitely easily beat Arsenal. Arsene Wenger has broken Alexis Sanchez. The unbreakable Alexis Sanchez has been played into the ground. A man who's been in the red zone so long, something, American football, something. I don't know. I can't work out a good analogy. But yeah, Alexis Sanchez has just basically been living in the red zone and his hamstrings twanged now. Things are bad at United, but at least Arsene Wenger isn't our manager. Man, that guy that guy. Mourinho's right about him, you know.
Yeah, serial loser. Yeah.
It's not even that side of it, but just the kind of the thing about him being the king. Just he gets away with anything. He can do anything he likes, never under any pressure. He's the only one. But it's a joke what he's done to that squad this summer. Like, he had such a big opportunity in the summer. Totally chucked it.
He did. They are, of course, only 2 points off the top of the league.
Yeah, absolutely. But do you have any confidence whatsoever in the idea that they could win it?
No, but it is so tight that they could. I mean, you know, I don't have any confidence. Maybe Wenger pulls out, a miracle and signs a top-class striker and a defensive midfielder in the January window, and they emerge as title favourites. Can't see it, but you never know.
Yeah, maybe. Could happen. I genuinely think it's more likely that Liverpool will win the title than Arsenal. It's a ridiculous thing to say.
Of course, it is still November, so we can't talk about transfers yet.
Yeah.
Until next week, when we will spend 90 minutes talking about potential transfers.
Really backed ourselves into a corner by agreeing to talk about them in December, haven't we? Yeah. But we're not going to buy anyone in January, though, so it's fine.
Well, I don't know. I think we might buy a left-back, or maybe two.
Can never have enough, can you? All right. Thank you for listening to us moaning about Manchester United for an hour. Sorry about that. If you want to, you can subscribe on iTunes to make sure you never miss us moaning about United. Sometimes we're like really enthusiastic when United are okay.
We are. If you look back into the iTunes archives,
you can find us. You can get us both on Twitter, Facebook, all that malarkey. United Rant has a forum, so if you like really old school talk manners, like old school within the context of the internet,
if you still have LPs,
then
you'll like this.
Yeah, then there is a forum on United Rant where the discourse is fruity. Is that colourful?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, with Twitter and various other things, I struggle to actually take part in the forum much myself, but it has been there with Rant since 2004. So it's a legacy, and there are still people who are very active.
Absolutely. So I don't know. We'll see you next week, I suppose. Sorry about this podcast, everyone.
Enjoy United's bore draw with West Ham, and we'll see you then.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.